my name is Taryn, and thank you so much for stopping by my channel today, Birdhouse Blooms. I've been wanting to shoot a garden tour for you guys for a while now, and I took the video but just hadn't had a chance to put it together. So these videos are a little bit old, maybe 3 weeks or so, but I wanted to share the progress I've made in getting the garden installed at the new location here for Birdhouse Blooms. I have a lot of perennials going on, and I have some things planted, and it's really good. It's really fun. If you remember from previous videos, I had a ton of seedlings started in my apartment with my husband and our dog Scully, and those seedlings were planted in anticipation of us moving in February, which that did not happen, and then I was hoping it would be March, and that didn't happen, and it ended up being June before we could move. So those seedlings were really tiny and blooming in the seed trays. I tried pinching them, and they were just shooting little tiny blooms off the tiny plants. So those are probably not going to produce anything for me. However, you will see them throughout the video just because I wanted to plant them into the ground, get all that healthy potting soil that I used, which is Coco Loco from Fox Farm, to grow those seedlings on. I wanted that added to my soil as an amendment, and I also wanted those roots in the ground. That is going to start the soil building process. It's going to attract beneficial microbes and insects into the soil. So even though those seedlings are not going to produce anything that I think, it's possible I could get really tiny short stems, but I still wanted those in the ground. So you'll see those throughout the video, probably in the background of some things here and there. So I just wanted to give you a little warning about the tiny plants that you'll be seeing. And actually, it's not all a big waste because I do sell a lot of Christmas ornaments and dried artwork at my shop downtown. So I can use those shorter stems for dried things and for my ornaments. And I like to stock up on stuff all year long to prepare for the holiday season. The ornaments I make are one of my best sellers in my shop. So it's not good for cut flowers, but they will be great for that purpose. And then I also just want to show you all the perennials and other things I have planted and going on. So let's get started. So starting out here in the front of the house, I have a lot of winterberry planted in this little boulevard. The grasses were already there from the builder, so I just put the winterberry in between there, and I will prune the grass out as needed. Over here in front of our porch, I planted a bunch of roses. I think I have about 8. Yes, I have 8 left that survived. I started out with 12, but these are the ones that I have left, and I really like the selection I have. We'll see how they do. Again, there are plants in here from the builder. There's also boxwood behind these roses that I will just prune small as the roses get bigger. So there's really no need for me to rip these plants out because I will use the boxwood as greenery and eventually just let the roses take over this area. And here are photos of the varieties that I have. I have one of each of these varieties. There were a few that I'd originally had 2 of, but I only have 1 survivor for each type. Here is a winterberry gold plant, and then behind the roses and boxwood, I have a row of hypericum. These produce really cute berries. I have a red, pink, and 1 plant survived that was a white variety, so I'm not sure which ones are which. Over here, I have transplanted my peonies that I took from my grandmother's home, and in front of that, I have a row of tiny, tiny little lavender seedlings. Those will grow up and need pruning, but because I cut off things so often, it's not really a big deal how big they're going to get. They won't get as big as they would have if these were spaced out. These are more boxwood plants that I will use for greenery, and I also plan on adding some peonies in here in between the boxwood. Again, I just will keep the boxwood prune very small because I'll just be using these for greenery a lot, and I will prioritize the peonies over those boxwoods. Now coming into the backyard through the gate, I have some privet planted right here. It's a non-invasive variety called Kindly, so that will be my main source of greenery. I'm just kind of using the boxwoods as needed until those get big and mature. Here I have some sedum plants. I have two different varieties. This one's called Thunderhead, and then this one is Autumn Joy. This poor little Baptisia plant is barely surviving, but here it is. I also have some dianthus, and this plant on the end, I believe, is an echinacea. It looked really dead, but it sprouted new growth at the base of the plant, so I still planted it. I will give a perennial a really good shot. Even if it looks dead, I'll still plant it because sometimes the root system is still alive and it'll bounce back. This section over here by the air conditioner, I have heirloom chrysanthemums planted. I do have a list of the varieties that I can go over in another video, but for right now, they're looking pretty rough. But again, they are perennial, so they just need to survive until next spring. Next up, you will see some of the saddest looking dahlias you will ever see. I had planted these tubers up because they were all waking up and I wanted them to be nice and ready for transplanting, but unfortunately they are either getting burned by the soil I used or something's not going on quite right here. However, when I dig under the soil and feel the tubers, they are not rotting. So the goal with the dahlias this year is just to simply get the tubers to survive until next spring. I overwinter my tubers in the ground, so I think letting the soil rest and just get more microbes and life in it will help these dahlias, but I do not think any of these will bloom this year. And you do not want these tall, spindly sprouts. That's what happened because they needed planted out really badly, and I couldn't. We had to stay in the apartment. So really my goal here is just to get these tubers to survive. I've noticed on some of these that top growth is dying back, that sometimes I do get fresher new sprouts at the base of the plant, which is exactly what I want. So even if it looks really dead and really sad, I'm holding out hope that there might be another eye or a new sprout that comes up. Skipley Lois Jean is one of my favorite varieties, so I'm happy to see this. But see how there's new growth at the bottom? So I can just prune this top piece off and let this branch at the base, and it should be okay. I've also noticed little birds that come and just sit on these poor spindly little stems, and they're like crimping them and bending them over and killing them off, kind of. I don't want to be mad at my little birds, but it's not really helping that they're trying to sit on these plants. It's kind of funny. There are a few that I've grown from tubers here that weren't pre-sprouted, so those ones are actually doing a lot better than the other ones. This one is coming up from the ground and has nice, short, stocky growth to have a healthier plant. It's possible some of these might bloom before the fall, but I don't have high hopes for that. Kay's Rosie Joe has a new sprout on it, even though the top growth was pretty sad. But I will just continue to keep my eye on all of these throughout the fall and just really hope that they survive and will sprout new healthy growth next spring and just be good healthy plants. This variety I'm really excited about, Mocha Jake, Kay's Mocha Jake. It is supposed to be a smaller version of Cafe au lait Dahlia, so I'm happy to have that variety and hopefully it survives as well. Next up, I have the bed that I planted the daffodils in originally, and I completely forgot I put those in there, honestly. I don't know how I forgot that, but I did. And so I accidentally planted yarrow on top of it, which is perennial. I also found this cutest little baby toads. These little toads are everywhere and they're so tiny and they're so adorable. But anyway, I planted the yarrow on top of the daffodils, so I do not know how that will turn out. That was an accident. I meant to put just annuals here so that when the daffodils came up it wasn't a big deal, but I also have some feverfew and other things. But like I said in the previous video, this area gets a lot of water, so I'm unsure if the daffodil bulbs will even make it or survive, but in the spring we will find out what happens. These are the only surviving Lisianthus seedlings that I had. They look okay here, but they are struggling in the heat and definitely need some help. So I need to get some shade cloth over these if I want them to do anything. These are the Gomphrena seedlings that were blooming in their plant trays, and they actually don't look terrible, but I don't think they're going to get tall. This is a bunch of sunflowers I have planted. There's various stages. I have some successions going on. And then over here I have some zinnia seedlings. We planted these out on the previous video from seed, and they're the Victorian wedding variety from Floret. Now out in the front I have two large containers. This has mostly hellebore in it with multiple colors. These like the shade, so this is a good plant to have on the porch. And then I also have some astilbe shooting up. Both of these plants like shade, so I'm okay that they are going to be competing with each other. They do get a little sunlight, but it's not too bad. Another little update about this garden bed that I just showed you. I was actually looking at these plants this morning and noticed that in addition to the astilbe shoots that I had showed you before, I also now have 2 sprouts of Baptisia. The variety on that is pink truffles. So what happened was I had a huge bulk order of Baptisia bare roots ordered, and I asked them to change my shipping address to my apartment instead of the house because we weren't going to be in the house yet when they were due to be shipped. Those Baptisia roots got sent to the house even though I asked for an address change, and I didn't know they were there, and they sat on the porch for weeks at the new house at the construction site. So I thought they were just as dead as they could get. So I put them in the bottom of the raised bed to take up space and compost down, and some of them actually sprouted and were alive. So I'm really excited about that. I'm not worried about that plant causing shade in the bed because both astilbe and hellebore appreciate shade. So it's not going to be a big deal if I have some Baptisia in there. It is a really big plant, so I'm not sure how that'll all work out, if I can dig it up later or propagate it somehow and take, sections of the root or cuttings or something. I'll have to look into that later, but that is what this growth is here, and it's really pretty, and I'm really excited about that. These are dahlia cuttings I took from my Irish deep porter and bracken rose tubers. I could tell these tubers were not doing well, so I took whatever growth they had and made cuttings, and luckily they have survived. That little spot on my porch is perfect because the humidity is high and they don't get direct sun. Now, while planting all of those perennials, I dug up a lot of the mulch that the builder put in, and there was a lot of mud and dirt everywhere. So my beds really needed mulch, and I just can't help myself. I love a good delivery of mulch. But this is my favorite kind of mulch to use. It's leaf mulch. It's just a way to add organic matter to your soil very quickly. Okay, that's all for this video. I hope you liked our very first garden tour of Birdhouse Blooms. It is June of 2024, and I'll keep you posted on all the updates, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye. Sally really wanted to help me with this one too. She's hanging out here with me while we make this video.